So this is the Firebrand. I'm going to show a little bit about the tomes, why I like the Firebrand better than the Core Guardian, and what I choose for my traits in the Firebrand specialization. So over on the left side, right above our attacks, we have the tomes, which replace the virtues of the Core Guardian. And I think the tomes are a lot better. I also like the mantras quite a bit.
Respite, recover, return.
But my main thing is really the tomes. So what happens with virtues and tomes is they give a passive benefit if you don't activate them. If you don't use the function key, the F1, F2, or F3, or if you click them, you activate them. Now, typically what happens, let's talk about Core Guardian a second. They're virtues, not tomes. They have the same names, although they're called virtues. So we have Tome of Justice, which would be Virtue of Justice in the Guardian. Tome of Resolve, which would be Virtue of Resolve. And we have Tome of Courage, which would be Virtue of Courage. They all give passive benefits, which over on the right side we can see. Tome of Courage gives Aegis at lengthy intervals, it's 40 seconds. Tome of Resolve, you regenerate health all the time. And Tome of Justice, which causes burning every few attacks, it's actually 5. The same thing happens with the virtues if you're on the Core Guardian. Now what happens, if you were to actually activate one of these tomes, normally, or a virtue, these passive benefits over on the right, or above our utilities, would vanish. These passive benefits, like regenerating health, would not return, would not resume, until the corresponding virtue, or tome, came off cooldown. Alright, so Tome of Resolve, you see here, we have a 40-second cooldown. So normally, if I activate Tome of Resolve for 40 seconds, I will not get the health regeneration. This is where I begin to go into my my builds in the hero panel. If I can actually open the damn thing. There it goes. Go to my build. So I use Valor, Zeal. Here's Firebrand. You can see now these, of course, these are just given. All right, these are the minor traits. And these are just given. But the Adept, Master, and Grandmaster we choose. I've chosen all along the bottom for a very specific reason. Each one of these benefits the tomes, and that's the whole reason I really like the Firebrand over the Guardian. Although I like the mantras, as I mentioned, it's the tomes that to me are the heart of it. So, here's the first one. Archivist of Whisperers. Okay, virtues gain additional pages, additional charges, which really are the same as pages. I don't know why they make things not absolutely clear by having consistent terminology, but anyway, pages mean charges, and charges mean pages. And what are they? They are these like diamond shapes, these rotated squares that we see just to the right of the tomes. Now I have 8 of them. That's because I chose this trait, which gives 3 additional pages or charges. So if you don't choose this, what happens is when you go into one of these, if you activate any of these tomes, you can use 5 of those abilities that you get, and then boom, it's over. By choosing this, I get 3 additional pages, and I have 3 additional abilities I can use within each tome if I activate them. So that's a nice benefit. This next one here, Legendary Lore. Tome skills gain bonuses from scribing in the margins by ancient bards. So that's their flavor text. What it really means is that, let me give you an example here. Tome of Resolve, every ability, no matter what it does, whether it cleanses condition or gives protection or whatever, each one of those abilities gives 6 seconds of regeneration. So every ability if I go into that, if I would go into this Tome of Resolve, if I would activate that, every one of those abilities also heals, even if by default they do not heal. And it happens with everything. If I go into Tome of Courage, alright? Every ability in Tome of Courage also gives 4 seconds of protection. So I consider this to be a great benefit. Same thing happens with, if we go into here, if we go in, over here, Tome of Justice. If we look at this, it gives 20% burning condition duration. Every ability, no matter what it does that. So these benefits really make, so far, even just these two, we get a whole lot more. We get a whole lot more out of the tomes. And then for the Grandmaster trait, I like to choose this, Lore Master. Tome skills gain reduced recharge, and they retain virtue passives, or tome passives, as they are with Firebrand. Again, it's a confusing terminology, when they're on cooldown. So, the recharge reduction is 33%. It's not like 10%. It's not bad. 33% is quite a lot. So every ability that you have when you activate a tome will recharge much faster. Cooldown is 33% less. In addition, I have 3 more pages. I get 3 more uses of abilities if I activate a tome, and they all have extra bonuses when I do activate them. And this is the big thing for me, because this is why I mentioned passives at the beginning of the video. So, since Tome of Resolve constantly gives me health regeneration, even if I activate it, I still have it. I still have the regeneration here. That boon did not go away. I still have constant health regeneration. And now, if I go over each ability, it tells me what each ability does. So, number 5 here. Epilogue Eternal Oasis. Right? What does it do? It cures conditions, converts them to boons. It doesn't just remove the conditions, it turns them into boons. And it increases the healing they receive. At the same time, because I chose... Maybe I should go back here. Because I chose this trait, this also gives regeneration for 6 seconds. The same thing here. Now this one gives swiftness and healing. On top of the healing, the base healing it gives, it also gives the 6 seconds of regeneration. This one here, this grants boons. This gives vigor, which increases your ability to dodge. It restores endurance. It gives swiftness. And because I chose this trait, it too, just like all these here, both of these here, it gives regeneration. This one here cleanses conditions. Alright? But because I chose this trait, not only does it clear conditions, cleanse them, it also gives the 6 seconds of health regeneration. So everything I do heals here, no matter what. Even though this is simply supposed to be a condition removal, it is also a heal. This gives a base heal. The number one ability gives a base heal. But because I chose this, it also gives 6 seconds of regeneration. And this goes on and on. So if I go to here, this is the Tome of Justice. Everything's going to burn. So number 5, it says, Ashes of the Just, 10 seconds, your next strike burns with justice, all right? So your next attack is going to burn, but it also gives 3.5 seconds of burning in addition to that. This too, detail the suffering in fire and blood inflicted during Vabi's occupation, all right? So it does damage, and it does bleeding. It does flat damage, just as bleeding damage. But in addition to that, it also does 2.5 seconds of burning because of this trait. Same thing here. Call forth a heated vortex to collapse your enemies together. And this is the exception. This one doesn't have the burning listed. And I don't know if this is a tooltip error or not, because that seems to be an anomaly. Because as I go here, once again, it says ignite the air around you in expanding burst, that's the damage part, and it gives weakness to the enemies. But because I chose this, it also gives burning. Again, fueled by the tales of the desolation in Istan, inside a great swelling of heat before you, which does damage, but because I chose this, it also does 3.5 seconds of burning. This I don't understand. It seems to be incorrect. But we can go here. This is the virtue of courage. So, because of this, I always get protection when I use an ability. So this here gives 4 seconds of Aegis, retaliation, and stability. But in addition to those 3 boons, it also gives the protection boon for 9 seconds. 33% less damage taken. You wouldn't get that without this trait. You can see the same thing here. This is reflect. This will reflect projectiles, but because I also have protection from this trait, there it is, 4 seconds of protection. This one is a taunt, but in addition to a taunt, it has 4 seconds of protection. And this one gives stability and swiftness, but because of this, it also gives protection. So this is why I chose all these. And the cooldowns on all these abilities are reduced by 33%. Without this, the Grandmaster trait, all these cooldowns would be a lot longer. And you could use them less frequently as you use up the pages of your tomes. And because I chose this trait, I get 3 extra pages, 3 extra charges, and it allows me to use abilities 3 more times. So that's my reason for choosing all this bottom line here. I do everything I can to boost these tomes, and that's of course kind of a support thing. But you know, it works also as a DPS thing, because this is obviously going to Tome of Justice. These are all damage, but it works for support because Virtue of Resolve, Tome of Resolve, and Tome of Courage, Virtue of Courage are very support-oriented. So that's how it works. That's why I chose these traits, and that's my logic behind it. So before this turns into an absolute feature-length film, I guess I will stop this here and hope that this made some sense.